Well, let's continue with our lecture, and our starting point is the collapse of the USSR, which is an interesting topic by itself. It is well taken into two different directions by usually two different groups. The dominant view is it's unproductive and country. Its citizens were basically not happy with the life they had in, and as a result, they and there was also political pressure, and as a result, they in the end have and the rule of the they revolted and the rule of the communist regime, and as a result, a new regime was formed. There's truth in this, but end of Soviet Union was a painful process, and at that point, process, things were not that smooth. I mean, people were certainly unhappy with the certain aspects of the USSR, but the alternative was also not something they completely wanted or liked. Also, and that's also why after the fall of USSR, you have a pro-market government formed by Boris Yeltsin, who in the end actually had resigned very abruptly, and Putin came into power, and though he has hold different position, maintained that power ever since, had created a system where state control over the economic system has increased greatly. Even though, I mean, the system has in no ways returned to the communist regime, the private sector is there, but now that private sector is heavily controlled by the government. The main point is people believe without state intervention, the economic system and political system also is likely to enter into chaos in USSR, in today's Russia, and that view is basically created by the Yeltsin era, which kind of economically and politically created something you might call chaos, or at least, well, the power and the the political power of Russia and the living standards of the people were obviously falling down at that era. But another idea is actually USSR has collapsed due to certain political mistakes. The system was not the problem, but the way that system was run in the end has created this collapse. And here, especially the fact that USSR was, I mean, from the very beginning, USSR was a country which was weaker than United States politically. In the at the very end of the World War II, well, it is production level was much weaker than United States, and it kind of had closed the gap, but still, I mean, United States was had a much higher production level than USSR, even at the very end. So why USSR did not catch up can also be a question by itself. But in the 1980s, USSR has entered to an era of stagnation. Is this by itself something that shows the system was not working? Maybe, maybe not. The other systems also enter to stagnation, but they don't necessarily collapse. But it might also show that the fact the stagnation collapsed the system, might also show the weakness of the system. That could also be an argument. And also, it's worth noting that right before USSR collapsed, there was a reform attempt to both introduce to some extent the market system into the economy in some sectors, and also again allow certain farmers to sell what they produce and produce certain products more privately, and also political some degree of criticism to the system was allowed, which was again that strictness in terms of, I mean, the system basically, the critique of system was limited by the government. Could have been also one of the weaknesses of the USSR, and when this strict, let's say, rules against the critique of the system is not leaving a space for alternative political expression, even for the very, very Marxists in the USSR, might actually, well, make certain problems be basically covered by the, not even by the people who are at the head of the government, but basically who are in the middle levels of the government might also have the power to cover the problems if basically they themselves cannot be criticized easily. And when a critique of the system was allowed, well, there can be several other problems there. First, the people who criticize the system will be the ones that have more power to express themselves. And they might be also the ones who might want, let's say, to have private property rights to allow some increase inequality in the system, so that they can use their power now also to increase their relative life standards. Of course, there could be also certain people who are relatively working in more important positions, and because they might be more productive, that might be one reason, or because they might have more power to get those positions, and since they are in those more important positions, they might also want to have higher wages and again have a system which allows more inequality and some private property rights again, which might allow them to use that power or their positions to build their own companies, or have important jobs in the companies that were built. And the people who might maybe most benefit from the system itself might not be able to have a voice if that voice is not, if they are given certain tools to have that voice. That might be one thing, basically, that the people who have more benefit from the collapse of the system might be able to express their views more easily than other people. But another thing is actually that the problems that exist for 80 years now might very well, I mean, make the people lose their faith in the system. So when you don't allow people to discuss the system, at some point they might, if they have initial hopes that the system might be reformed or transformed into a better system, at some point they might lose that hope, and they might think that the whole system might be transformed. And they might believe, when they look to the alternative system from a distance, that system might look even more beautiful than it is. Maybe it is more beautiful, but in some ways also they might not see the problems within the system. That might then make them idealize the system even more. So the discussion how and why the USSR collapsed is a big discussion, and there are some strong ideas there, but I personally think that the ideas from both sides and the ideas at different levels should be looked upon, and the consequences are also a big, basically, question. Well, does it mean that, well, at the very beginning, it was thought that this is the end of the history, one single system is now dominant, and this single system will exist forever, And basically, the basic history of struggle of systems, alternative viewpoints, has ended. Did it? Well, this is a big question because with a big comment, because when you think about it, at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, you have again one dominant power. You have Russia and some other countries which were still compete with this big country, UK, but pretty much UK's dominance was there. It was still clearly superior, and the system it represents also seems superior and unchallenged at 1815 after Napoleon was defeated. But this system dominated by one big global hegemonic power it was challenged in time and at least could not go on at a certain point. So what does mean? It means the fall of Soviet Union is a big. Whether the Soviet Union's fall means that U.S. system will become forever dominant is a very big claim. If you think about that, yeah, Rome was dominant for centuries, for example. Well, what does it mean for let's say some looks for alternatives, especially might be a question, because USSR was standing as one big single alternative of the capitalist system. But it also means that you had the alternative. If you don't like capitalism, here is the alternative, which was USSR, which is a functioning country. You can look, you can like, but you might also not like in many ways. Now you don't have the alternative, a clear alternative. So different alternatives might now compete in people's mind who don't like the capitalist system. So in a way, USSR, from the perspective of global capitalist system, was containing this anti-systemic side of the US system. Now this anti-systemic aspect of US capitalist system is not anymore contained. And you can see it easily. I mean, you can see the results of this factor, basically. Well, nowadays it is in the United States and in other countries also you see wild spread of anti-capitalist movements of all kinds, and those anti-capitalist movements cannot be anymore basically binded to USSR conspiracy or basically, well, a single source which can be also be shown as not a better alternative by the existing, let's say, agents of the global capitalist system, and people who like this global capitalist system as it is today to continue. So these are questions, and what are the widespread consequences of this fall is a very, very big discussion by itself. So those are some aspects I could think of. You probably can think of other aspects, and if you want also under the discussion of this lecture, you can also express them. Let's continue. Well, the 1980s, increasingly, and to some extent 1990s, was also the time when the global the development model of the US capitalist system has been challenged and in many ways changed. That challenge was not actually brought by the people of the developing countries, but rather it was brought from the center. And I will talk more on it in the next part.